Let's get something straight right out of the gate. The longevity industry loves to talk about your heart, your muscles, your telomeres, your NAD plus levels, and then treats your brain like the weird cousin nobody invited to the family reunion. Everyone's obsessed with adding years to your life, but nobody's asking the more important question: what good are those extra years if you can't remember your grandkids' names or find your car in the parking lot? Cognitive health isn't a bonus feature you bolt onto a longevity plan. It's a core pillar, right up there with cardiovascular fitness and metabolic health. And frankly, the way conventional medicine handles cognitive decline should make you furious. The standard playbook goes something like this: wait until someone is significantly impaired, slap a diagnosis on it, prescribe a drug that modestly slows the inevitable, and call it a day. That's not medicine. That's damage control with a copay. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Alzheimer's and other forms of cognitive decline are not primarily genetic destiny. They're largely downstream consequences of chronic low-grade dysfunction happening for decades before anyone notices a symptom. Your brain is the most metabolically demanding organ in your body. It's about 2% of your body weight and burns roughly 20% of your energy at rest. When the systems that fuel and protect it start breaking down, cognition doesn't collapse overnight. It erodes quietly, one skipped mitochondrial repair job at a time, until one day you're standing in your kitchen wondering why you walked in there. This is exactly where the Wolverine Healing Protocol earns its keep. If you want to understand and actually address cognitive decline instead of just medicating around it, you have to look at the 5 M's. Microvascular health. Your brain runs on an absurdly dense network of tiny blood vessels, and if those vessels are stiff, inflamed, or clogged with the byproducts of a garbage diet, oxygen and nutrients don't get where they need to go. Silent microvascular damage is one of the most underappreciated drivers of brain fog and early decline, and conventional medicine mostly ignores it until it shows up as a stroke. Mitochondrial health. Neurons are mitochondria-dense cells because thinking is expensive. When mitochondrial function tanks from oxidative stress, toxin exposure, or just plain neglect, your neurons can't generate enough cellular energy to fire properly, repair themselves, or clear out cellular debris. Dysfunctional mitochondria are arguably the single most important root cause factor in accelerated brain aging. Metabolic balance. Insulin resistance doesn't just affect your waistline, it affects your hippocampus. There's a reason some researchers have started calling Alzheimer's type 3 diabetes. Chronically elevated blood sugar and insulin resistance are neurotoxic over time, and yet most people get their cognitive symptoms evaluated in complete isolation from their metabolic panel. That's malpractice by omission. Metabolic reserve, including muscle. So, muscle isn't just for looking good at the beach. Skeletal muscle is a metabolic organ that produces myokines, signaling molecules that cross into the brain and support neurogenesis and cognitive resilience. Sarcopenia, age-related muscle loss, and cognitive decline travel together far more often than coincidence would allow. If you're not resistance training, you're leaving one of the most powerful, free, drug-free, cognitive protective tools sitting on the table. Membrane health. Every neuron is wrapped in a membrane built largely from fats, and the quality of those fats determines how well signals move, how well receptors function, and how resilient the cell is to inflammation. A diet heavy in processed seed oils and light on omega-3s is quite literally building your brain out of inferior construction materials. You wouldn't build a house out of cardboard. Stop building your neurons out of the equivalent, The current model treats cognitive decline like an unavoidable weather event, something that just happens to you like a hurricane, and the best you can do is board up the windows once you see it coming. Meanwhile, the actual data on lifestyle intervention, things like the finger study out of Finland, which combined diet, exercise, cognitive training, and vascular risk management, shows meaningfully better outcomes than most of what's sitting in your medicine cabinet. But multi-domain lifestyle intervention doesn't have a patent, doesn't have a sales rep, and doesn't generate quarterly earnings calls. So guess which approach gets a fraction of the funding and a fraction of the attention? I'm not anti-pharmaceutical dogmatically. Actually, I guess that I am anti-pharmaceutical. Some drugs do have a role, albeit it should be a relatively temporary role, but when the entire system is financially incentivized to manage symptoms rather than address root cause, you end up with a healthcare model that's essentially selling you a bucket to catch the water instead of fixing the leak in the roof. It's a very profitable bucket, though. If you want to protect and even improve cognitive function, here's where I'd focus, filtered through the 5 M's. Move your body seriously, not just a stroll to the mailbox. Combine cardiovascular exercise, drives microvascular and mitochondrial health, with resistance training, builds metabolic reserve. Learn about EWOT, exercise with oxygen training. Exercise is, without exaggeration, one of the most potent cognitive enhancers available, and it's free. Fix your metabolic terrain. Get your fasting insulin checked, not just your fasting glucose. Insulin resistance shows up years before glucose numbers go sideways. Time-restricted eating and reducing processed carbohydrate load can meaningfully improve metabolic balance and, by extension, brain function. Feed your membranes properly. Prioritize omega-3 fatty acids. wild fish, algae-based supplements for the plant-based crowd, and cut back hard on industrial seed oils. Your neuronal membranes will thank you by actually working. Support mitochondrial function directly. This means addressing oxidative stress, considering targeted nutrients like glutathione, CoQ10, or PQQ under appropriate guidance, prioritizing sleep. Mitochondrial repair happens disproportionately during deep sleep, and minimizing unnecessary toxin exposure. Treat sleep as non-negotiable. This is when your brain runs its glymphatic cleanup system, clearing out metabolic waste, including amyloid byproducts. Skimping on sleep is like never taking out the trash and wondering why the house smells. Stay socially and cognitively engaged, but don't overrate crossword puzzles. Novel, complex activities, learning an instrument, a new language, engaging in genuinely challenging conversation do more for cognitive reserve than repetitive puzzle apps designed to keep you subscribed rather than sharp. Cognitive health isn't something that happens to you in your 70s while everything else you did in your 40s gets a free pass. It's built or eroded daily through the same foundational systems that govern the rest of your longevity: your microvasculature, your mitochondria, your metabolism, your muscle, and your membranes. Treat the 5 M's as your operating framework. Stop waiting for a diagnosis to take action, and stop outsourcing your brain's future to a system that profits more from managing decline than preventing it. Your brain got you this far. It deserves better than an afterthought. If you or a loved one are experiencing cognitive decline, we can help. We have a brain restoration Wolverine protocol that is both effective and backed by research. We combine nutrients and therapies to help restore and reset your microvascular system, awaken and enhance mitochondrial function, and help to balance metabolism, organ reserve, and membrane health. Your brain will improve as your body gets healthier. Brain health depends on overall health. Of course, we also have several specific things to accelerate brain restoration.